hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Career Corner podcast where we answer your cozy career cues. I'm your season five host, Malcolm Alexander. And on today's episode, we are so excited to be joined by Aiden Townsend. Aiden, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited to have you on. I'm sure you've got some great stuff to talk about. Before we get into everything, though, I would love to hear just a little bit about who you are, what you do, and yeah, what just sort of who is Aiden Townsend, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a recent graduate from Ithaca College. I dual majored in accounting and finance with a minor in business analytics. I've been working full time at VettaFi since July. I interned there last summer and I kept the internship throughout the school year and I got a full-time offer around in the winter. So my position is a index research analyst. And so I help in the day-to-day production and upkeep of the indexes that we are calculating. There's a lot of data discrepancies that we look into generally relating to corporate actions, which is when like a company is kind of deciding to make a move per se. So we just kind of verify that everything is doing what it should be in our database, which is like majority of our time, kind of like the day to day, just making sure things are running right.
Awesome. Sounds complicated to me. I mean, I know nothing about that world, that whole industry, and I've got a couple questions for you about more specifically that. But before we get into that, you had a pretty interesting opportunity to go pretty much straight from your undergraduate experience into this position through an internship. Could you tell me a little bit about sort of what was the process like of getting the internship, and then what was the process like of getting the extended offer to stay on and get hired?
Yeah, so I had the internship my junior year. So leading up to that, I was doing a lot of kind of like cold applies where you just kind of like find the link, go on LinkedIn, whatever. Honestly, really didn't hear back from any of those, kind of applications. The only times I really got any traction or got interviews was reaching out to like Ithaca alumni, and then having them talking to them, just getting to know them, and then they sometimes are able to like refer you to like a hiring manager or, just the right person. So definitely leverage the Ithaca connection, to get interviews and whatnot. And for the internship that I got, leading up to it, I had a professor, Professor Weinberg. I was in one of his classes, and I kind of go to his office hours a lot and just kind of ask him a bunch of finance questions. Because there's a lot of jargon, a lot of stuff that's tough to wrap your mind around. And one day he told me, he's like, "Oh, there's a alumni who's looking for an intern. If you're interested, you should apply." So I applied, and that was kind of the connection. And then I had my interviews, and they decided to hire me for the summer, which was awesome. And I was in New York City for that. And then for the full time, I think most important thing of like getting the full time was, one, they were looking for like they were just hiring. Sometimes like companies may or may not actually be hiring, which will kind of stop where you are. But fortunately, it's a growing business, and I can't say for certain what qualities where I had or displayed during my internship that made them want to keep me. But every day I just tried to stay as engaged and really trying to learn everything I could from the people around me and just like asking a lot of questions because I didn't really have any background or experience with indexing. I'm sure a lot of people have no idea what that means, but it was just like every day I was just trying to like learn something. And today I like to say I understand it a lot better overall. That was only possible through just like being curious and making the effort to talk to people.
Yeah, I love that you emphasize being curious. That every guest we talk to basically says, whether it's at college or when you're reaching out to alumni, when you're looking at internships or jobs, or even once you've landed an internship or a job, staying curious, staying interested, always trying to be learning is really a trait that can help push you forward, not just through your career, but just, sort of through life as a good person in general. Before sort of getting to that, were there any experiences that you like extracurriculars or clubs or activities that you got to do during your time at IC that you feel like really gave you good skills or good opportunities to prepare you for what you're currently doing?
I think the most valuable thing I learned from, the curriculars I did CTC, Beit Alpha Psi, did a lot of the school trips, and I did a lot of Beit Alpha Psi trips. Ultimately, I think just learning the ability to connect with people I think, you're with people you've never met before, and you kind of have to make that sort of awkward jump to like initiate like conversation and all this. I think through all those experiences, it really built up my ability to kind of connect and like understand other people as well as, the industries they work in. It kind of allowed me to ask more and better questions through, going to like career events or going to these conferences, going on the Meet the Firms trips, meeting really just a lot of meeting people. I think as well as the relationships that you can build that can help your career. Like those opportunities are very important for that. But, I don't really think about it as just like, oh, networking to get a job. It's really just you kind of meet new people and like whether it helps you or not, does it like shouldn't matter to you. It's just like I think trying to build your skill set of like personability and like how to talk to people really. I think that's probably the most important thing I've learned from the extracurriculars.
100%. We hear all the time that, from students that the prospect of having to try and get a job through connections or just the prospect of connecting with people in your industry is really scary as a college student if you've never really had to do that. And like you've just described, it can feel kind of awkward, kind of weird sometimes. But I think that's really great advice about don't think about every opportunity that you're speaking to someone as, oh, well, I need to do good because if I don't have a good conversation right now, I won't get a job. Because that's A, that's just not how life works, and B, that's just not really a conducive to your own success when it comes to being a personable and well interviewed person, I guess. So yeah, I
Hmm.
think that's really great advice for sure.
Yeah, and one more thing I kind of want to hit on, something I wish I realized more as like a student, especially. When you're a student, you have a get out of jail free card to ask the silliest questions you can imagine. I feel like sometimes I'll be talking to somebody in an industry and I'm kind of like they tell me something, I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I'm not gonna ask them like, what are you talking about? Kind of just like learning to kind of like get over yourself and just like say like I don't know what you're talking about. Like, can you break this down for me? And no one's ever gonna really judge you. Like people are always, have your best interests in mind as well. Like they will try to help you. You just kind of have to like put it out there that like, oh, I don't get this or it's not clicking.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't hide if you're, confused or curious about something. Like we were just saying, that curiosity is a good and admirable trait, especially when you've still got that sort of shield of I'm a student, be nice to me kind of thing going on. And since we're
Yeah.
kind of on this topic, was there anything that you feel like you've learned or realized now that you're sort of an industry professional and working post grad that you wish you knew in college? Are there any like tips or tricks that you really wish you had in your back pocket when you were going through the application process?
Um, Tips or tricks. I would say, I got this advice from another alumni I spoke to, and he said, like, you should kind of figure out your skill set, when you're kind of looking for roles as well as applying and like, all factors into like this image you're trying to like portray to like a future employer. And so for me, like I was talking to this person and I had a lot of like analytics backgrounds, a lot of like using like Tableau, Excel, stuff like that, and like trying to, I guess, like concisely and clearly state like what value you can add and like using the skills you've learned in classes. I think you really got to look into like what they're actually looking for out of the potential employer. It's usually an in or like intern. which is not as serious as like I guess it is still like a serious role, but they're not looking for it's not like a full-time position, obviously, but it still is very important to kind of be pretty concise and like know what you want to say and like get it across like this is what I'm good at, this is what I can add. And then, kind of what I was talking about before, like ability to connect with people. If you're able to connect with someone over Zoom, which I think is like very difficult, I think that can really help set you apart. Because when you're on a team, the people you're with really do matter. That's something I've really learned now. Like the people I'm around, I really enjoy, just being around them, working with them. And, I couldn't imagine, the other spectrum where it's like, kind of hard to, get along with other people. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you sort of emphasized it a lot already, but developing those, what some people would call soft skills of being personable, being chatty, being, just sort of being a nice person to be around, on top of the technical skills that you build in your classes and in your extracurriculars, can be really, really important to setting you apart. And when we're talking about, I guess, sort of hard versus soft skills, some hard skills that I think a lot of students are at the very least curious about right now, or maybe a little bit worried about, is sort of how is AI being integrated into various industries and in pretty much everything. And so I want to ask you, like, how much is AI used in your daily work experience? How much sort of expectation was there when you came in that you would be proficient in using AI? Are you seeing any sort of changes going on right in front of you concerning AI? Just sort of what's going on with that in at Betafy right now.
Yeah, so when I first joined, we didn't have like I don't think we were allowed to use AI really, so I didn't, I wasn't really doing that for my work, but eventually, I think it was this year in like the winter, January, February, they rolled like Gemini into our like we use Gmail, the Google Suite. And so we got Gemini access. And so now what I really use it for is doing like company research and what I was talking about before with like corporate actions. So an example of a corporate action would be like a merger acquisition. And we need to make sure all the information is correct for that. And one way to just like double check, I'll use like Gemini, just have it look into like the terms of the deals, the days it's effective, stuff like that. We do have data providers that we pay for their data so that we don't need to like look it up, but it is helpful, for sure for, just getting a little more context on like a situation for how it's, was the kind of like middle question, like how it's impacting,
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, guess you sort of answered it, I guess, in a lot of ways, but just if you're seeing any sort of impacts or changes, like is there an expectation now that people working in Betafy need to be, pretty well versed in using Gemini,
Mhm.
or I guess just sort of like, does it seem like AI is becoming a more and more prominent part of the work you do?
Yeah, so the work I do, I wouldn't say there's like a like, oh, everyone's told to use it. I think it's recommended. It's like, when they rolled it out, there's like trainings and did some like company wide sort of like this is how you use it. I had actually at Ithaca, I took a class where we were given a ChatGPT 4 premium subscription to use for the class. It's an advanced analytics class, and we basically were taught how to prompt engineer, which is kind of like figuring out the best way to tell an AI to do something. So I was able to leverage that a lot in, I guess, asking better questions of the AI and like how to, I guess like better format the information it gives me and then like what sources to look for. So I think if you're not familiar with AI at all and like you're like, oh, how can I make this useful for me? Definitely look into like prompt engineering and kind of like I guess like the idea behind that. And then yeah, I think certain jobs are probably more advocate more for you to use AI. I think like coding jobs, it's more recommended just to like learn how to use it. But I think no matter what industry you're in, better to know how to use it because it can make things go quicker. It can also give you some like very incorrect answers as well. So don't be reliant, but it's ultimately just a tool, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, even if it's not a necessity at the moment, definitely thinking of it as a tool and something that it would be helpful to have a certain degree of mastery over. I think that's really great advice, honestly. To kind of close us out here, I just want to know if you've got any sort of lingering advice, any other helpful tips, or any experiences that you had in your undergrad that you feel like you just need to share because they will be super helpful to any students that might be listening.
Great
No.
question. Any other advice? Yeah, I think a lot of it I've hit on, one like using AI as a tool. I think actually going back, I wish I'd used, or actually it started evolving as I was graduating. I guess my recommendation is start using it to learn more about like your industry and like what you're studying. So just for example, in like business or finance, like it's all about jargon, and the sooner you can kind of understand these words and these sayings, I think the better off you are. And if you are like conversing with potential employers, like you can really set yourself apart by showing your just curiosity in the subject as well, with the understanding. So like even now, like I use AI to like research certain topics or certain themes that are more popular in, I guess, like modern finance or specifically to my industry, which is like ETFs and funds and indexing. So I use that today just to like contextualize more like what's going on, um, as well as just like a overall understanding. So leverage AI and just like it's very not overused, but everyone says this, but just like be open. You gotta get over yourself sometimes and just like try something different. Even if your friends don't want to do it, like just go yourself. Like you will be a better person if you put yourself through those like difficult and things you really don't want to do. So I think just the more you do that, the more you get in a routine of doing that. In the future, you're just more likely to do that. Try to make things difficult for yourself, I guess.
I like that. I think that sounds good. I think that's really good. And we'll keep that in mind with everything else we talked about, being personable, utilizing the tools around you, utilizing the experiences that you get, of course, provided here at IC, but also through alumni connections or any other connections. So I think we really got to go over some awesome stuff today. Thank you so much, Aiden, for sitting down and speaking with me today.
Yeah. Thank you, Malcolm, for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Career Corner podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow Career Corner on Instagram and Spotify to stay up to date with future releases. If you're interested in posing some more cozy career cues or in checking out the Career Closet, Headshot booth, and all the other cool resources available, feel free to stop by drop-in hours at the Center for Career Exploration and Development in Miller Faculty Center 101 from 11 to 2, Monday through Friday. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Career Corner podcast.